bread and breakfast, bed and breakfast, and also charter boat captain. Brady, Davey, sit down. What are we talking about today, John?
I'm going to kind of get a little bit of everything, and it's going to be, if you have questions, just ask. I'm going to try to cover some different areas. First thing, I do own a bed and breakfast. I'm fourth generation in this area. So I grew up pulling these flats from the kitchen to Port Manatee since I was a kid, mostly from the mouth of the river south. Did commercial fishing. Grew up, my ancestors and kinfolk did a lot of commercial fishing. And one thing I wanted to check here. Does anybody know what this is?
Emergency day signal.
Distress flag. Okay. One thing that's become a pet peeve of mine, if you do not have one on your boat, whether it doesn't matter what's a kayak or not, if you do not have one on your boat, please put one on there. Okay. I go out on a charter and I see a lot of people waving at me, big time waving. So you don't know whether to wave at them back or go on, or whether to go and see if they need help. Okay. I've took quite a few people in. I've took people from Fort Manatee back into Cockroach. Been there about 3 or 4 times. Brought a couple people in the river. I went out and scouting the other day. Young man was out there stuck at the mouth of the river. His motor wouldn't start. Please put a distress flag on your boat. The thing is, if you break down and put out a distress flag, as a captain, I cannot pass you up. I cannot pass up a boat in distress. That's the same as someone leaving the scene of an accident. So if I'm going by and I have a charter, I have to stop and see what your problem is and check on it. And if it's not a life-threatening thing, what I may do, I may say, well, just anchor here. We're going to go fish. I'm going to take my clients fishing. We're going to stop and get you on the way back. Okay? But we're going to stop and make sure that you're okay. In most cases, my clients will agree that we tow you to the nearest place. You know, I've never had a problem with that. But please put a distress flag on there so people know you're in trouble. Because a lot of times we don't know it if you're up on the flat anchored up. We're not going to come close to you because we're going to give you space. We don't want to fish on top of you. If you're running a trolling motor and you need help, you know, you got to let us know. So, and that a captain cannot pass you up if you got one of these things showing. So, just a little trick there. Yes, sir.
2 weeks ago, 2-month-old battery died on me. 2-month-old battery out there at Malafai in the bay.
Yeah.
I had called Bo US to come and jump me.
Yeah.
I got the jumper little thing at home. I didn't bring. I got a 2-month-old battery. Why do I need to take? I get it back and it's got 2 dead cells in a 2-month-old battery.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what the problem ended up being, but I had a young man, well, I say, there was a gentleman and his young son, and I saw him run a trolling motor on the outside edge of Port Manatee. And I was kind of easing up on the flat, but I noticed he wasn't fishing. He was just running his trolling motor. Well, he was in a it was a 20-foot V-hull Carolina skiff. And he was going back to Cockroach landing. There's no way he'd never made it. But he finally waved at me when I got close, and he told me that his boat was a brand new boat. That's the first time he ever had it in the water.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's something he did wrong or whatever, but still. So I told him all the way back from the ferry landing all the way back to Cockroach Bay. But because you just never know. You know what's going to happen when you get out there.
You get those at West Marine, and where'd you pick yours up?
Yeah, you get a Walmart, West Marine, Southshore, anglers. I mean, a Southshore bait tackle have them. Any boat place at all, tackle store, most of them will carry this stuff. And this is another thing that I use a lot. I don't know if you guys do, but how many people in here use a debugger? Okay. Okay, well, I'm preaching to the choir here then. Because I live by this thing.
Absolutely.
Right.
You know, I get trout. I don't want to bring them in the boat. I don't want to kill them. I'm going to release them. I release most of my fish anyway. I'm mainly a fly fishing guide, and I do it all. I do spin tackle, but I release most of my fish. I want to keep them alive, put them in the water. I love this thing because of ladyfish. The only fish, and one of the most dangerous fish a guy can deal with is a ladyfish. stop. Other fish, snook, you can pick them up on the side, they'll quit moving. Other fish, you can pick them up, they'll quit flopping. The ladyfish will not. The only fish that has ever put a hook in my hand has been a ladyfish, and it's happened twice.
And they'll poop all over your boat.
Yes, they will.
Oh, God, they'll poop all over your boat.
So you want to leave them in the water, just leave them in the water. The trick with it is keep the handle put to towards the sky. Pull down on the hook, and they'll flip them right out. Go right past that.
It even works on sail cats.
Yes, sail
Oh,
cats,
yeah.
It's one of the best.
sail cats and stingrays.
Yeah.
Sail cats and stingrays.
You get a bigger one, you can use it for sharks. You just gotta get a big boy.
I got one.
Now we're going to get more into the fishing and the little tips and tricks that's going to make a difference when you put fish in the boat or not. Okay. One thing I carry is a hook sharpener. I keep a hook sharpener in all my tackle gear. Whether it's a fly that I'm throwing, or a lure that I'm throwing, or whether I'm throwing bait, I'm going to check that hook every once in a while. Because what I want to do is, especially if I hook it on bottom, or hook it on a dock, or hook it on mangrove, anything, I want to check that point. I want that point, when I draw it across, I want that point to dig into my nail. I don't want it to slide across my nail. Okay? If it doesn't, I'm going to take my file and I'm going to hit it a couple times, but drawing the point forward. Okay? The reason is, if you draw the point backwards, if you sharpen it like this, it's going to leave a real fine burr on the end of that point, which will turn over easy. Once that lays down, you got a dull hook again. So you want to cut into the point when you sharpen that hook. And that'll make a difference of whether you set the hook in that fish or not. It'll make a lot of difference.
What about circle hooks?
Yeah, that's all circle hooks. Yeah, especially circle hooks, but all hooks. But yeah, I use mostly circle hooks on all my stuff, except now my flies I don't, because I see them eat it, so I'm going to hit them right then. But all this other stuff, I use circle hooks for most of my gear, live bait or artificial. I want to hit this real quick because how many of you guys go out to Ship Channel for grouper?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now this is a thing that we do. A lot of you guys know this already. Okay. But this is the thing we do. We go out and get the grouper. We were commercial fishing. Okay. We were trying to live. We're trying to feed our families. All right. So we got to put fish in the boat. We don't want to lose fish. But what we'll do, and especially now that you've got the circle hooks, we didn't have circle hooks back then, but we made sure we had sharp hooks. When you hit a grouper, snapper, anything, when you're on those, especially on the reef piles, you're down in the rocks, what you want to do is, this is a newel reel. This outfit I use for grouper, tarpon, cobia, sharks. Okay, I like this reel simply one reason, because when I turn this crank one time, this reel collects 28 to 30 inches of line. So if I crank it twice, I've moved that hook 5 to 6 foot. All right. When I'm fishing grouper or any snapper, whatever, on the bottom, when I get a bite, I do not lift my rod. I don't care how strong you are. You cannot keep that fish from bringing it back down. Okay? So you bring it up 6 foot, he's going to take it down 8. He's back in the rocks. Okay? You didn't turn his head. So what you want to do is put this arm up, and even if you need to lay your elbow on the gun, what I'll do is I'll let him take it. We're normally using circle hooks, and then what I'll do is I'll make 2 or 3 cranks just as fast as I can without lifting the rod. Okay, what you've done is you've drawn his head up out of those rocks, and you've already got the rod down here, so you're in a better shape. He's not going to pull that rod back down. So you've got his head turned. Once you get his head turned out of that structure, then half the battle's over. He's going to come to the top. So just remember, when you're fishing for grouper, anything on the bottom, don't lift the rod. Just turn that handle. Because with a circle hook, you don't want to jerk it anyway. All you want to do is reel. So you keep that rod down and crank just as hard as you can. And get you a reel that will pick up a good amount of line to the ratio of turns. That'll help a lot. And this is good too when you get smoker fish like tarpon on. you want to retrieve as much line as you can when they start running back at you. You want to be able to retrieve it fast. Another thing too, we do this mainly with fly line, but also it works on mono. When a fish runs away from you and then comes straight back at you, do not hold that rod up in the air and try to reel it, okay? Lay that rod tip, stick the rod tip in the water and reel as fast as you can. What it will do, the resistance of the line dragging through the water will keep tension on that hook in his mouth. So when he comes straight at you, you still got tension on that hook and he won't get any slack line and you can pick it up and get it to you. So that'll eliminate a lot of fish throwing the hook when they come at you. That's a trick we use fly fishing. Because even though the fly line is thicker than this mono, if they're dragging it behind them, that'll still maintain that hook point and keep that slack out.
John, at what point do you start moving the rod up and down when you have a grouper? I mean, you mentioned.
Once you get him, you want to get his head out of those rocks.
Right.
Okay. Once you know you've got him coming out of those rocks towards you, then don't lift it up here.
Right.
You know, just bring it up about like this. Once you get a rod past, and I'll show you more on these inshore rods, I use a lot. Once you get a rod up to where you're fighting him with the tip, you're not doing anything. So you want to fight him with the butt of the rod. Okay? Because he can bend this tip easy. Once you start getting up here, you're not doing anything. All right? We use, again, going back to fly fishing, but this is relative to all fishing. Okay? We use what we call the rule of 45. Okay? I want to keep that rod within 45 degrees of my fish. That way, what I'm doing is, if I keep that rod within 45 degrees, I'm fighting him with the backbone of the rod. I'm fighting him with the butt. I'm not fighting him with the tip. All I want to do is just keep a light bend in that tip. So I do that. So if he comes out, you get that. That's going to keep tension on there. Okay.
You know, the easiest thing I learned when you're grouper fishing is once you get him out of that rocks, when you're sitting there, you can almost point the rod around and just keep cranking. If you just sit there and put your leg or put your foot on that gunnel, and you can rest that rod right there on your thigh and just crank just like this. And it'll keep it right there at that exact, where I've seen Rodney, big Rodney, tried to do the whole 9 yards, no, he gets beat up. I saw him miss 10 huge grouper by trying to fight it the wrong
And
way.
it just takes small lifts. You know, don't try to come up high. Just bring it up a couple foot, take a couple foot of line. Bring up a couple, take a couple foot of line. So it works. And then he'll come on up to you. But like I said, once you get that head turned out of the rocks, half the battle's over with. Anything else of the deep sea grouper?
Oh, grouper's closed now, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Last night at midnight.
Well, there's one thing else,
Okay.
and there's a trick that we used commercial fishing with bait. Was when you got dead pinfish, I do this now. I'll take a live pinfish and do this with, but I also do it when I'm fishing bait for tarpon. What I'll do is take my pinfish, or I've used sharks or tarpon. Sometimes I'll do it with ladyfish. But especially the dead ones, don't throw them away. What you want to do is butterfly. So you cut them down from the tail to back behind the gills on each side, and then cut across and take the backbone out. Now when I butterfly them, I leave the tail on one side. You know what I'm saying? I cut it behind the tail and then take that backbone out completely. What'll happen is, when that you put that down in the current, and that thing just does this. Plus it puts out a hell of a lot more scent in the water. So I catch a lot of tarpon with that. But for grouper, man, it's unbelievable. You can take that and put that on a jig head and just bump it, and that thing just flutters and puts all that scent out in the water, and they will eat it up. But it's a trick that we did because, you know, we'd have dead pinfish, and it makes them look alive. Okay, now I'm going to go to a little more inshore. Like I said, I love fly fishing. That's my baby. But I do a lot of spinning tackle on flats. Now I've got a Hell's Bay flats boat, runs in 6 inches of water, floats in 5 to 6 inches. So this time of year, you know, he hates this cold weather. I'm loving it. I love it because this time of year, that cold weather comes in and brings a snook, redfish up the river. Yesterday, I caught 2 2 snook, 6 trout off my dock. This morning, I caught 2 reds and 4 trout. And we just got back from Tennessee, so I've got a lot of honeydews I gotta get done. So I was able to go out in the morning, I went out in one tide, cast a few times, go back in, do a couple more honeydews off my list, and then go out and cast a little bit. So, but this is great. That tells me that the fish are moving into the river. This is one thing, I don't know, I just started using these rods. A friend of mine designed these, y'all know him, Rick Lyles. He designed these, a K9 rod. I started using these. I love these things. These things are great. One thing, I use most artificials, it's got a short butt handle, and it's got a cushion on the end. So when you're working these, especially like this top water, when you're working these lures, it's really, really nice and comfortable. It's a light outfit. These rods run, I think anywhere $80 to $100 is the price range, which is very comfortable, very economical. They're really, like I said, really nice rods. They got a good flexible tip. See, they got a good stiff backbone. So that tip's gonna let me throw lighter stuff. This one I've got mono on it. This is a 4000. I use mono a lot when I'm using like top water plugs and stuff because it gives that stretch when you hit a fish, because I'm fishing clients, you have to understand. So a lot of these guys, some of these guys are coming and they want to hit them like they hit a bass. They want to cross their eyes. And they hit them too hard and lose a lot of fish by doing that. So if I use this mono, when they hit them, it's going to stretch a little bit, so they're not going to lose as many fish. When I personally fish, I like to use braid. This is a rig that I love this time of year. Now some of you guys have seen this before, okay? This is what I call, old timers used to use it, that's like me, for snook fishing. This is called a double duty. All right, you take a skidder walk, doesn't matter any top water bait, skidder walk. This is a little Super Spook Junior, I believe. Take the front hooks off of it. All right, tie about 2 or 3 foot of mono to the back. You don't tie it to the hook because you want the hook to dangle, so you tie it to the back of the lure. Also, one thing this will do, it'll make it sit a little bit higher in the water, so you take that front hook off. But I put 2 or 3 foot line behind it. I'm doing this because I'm fishing this skinny water where these reds are going to be laid up in that shallow water. Now you're going to catch trout, you're going to catch snook on this, but the main reason I do this is for reds. And you can throw that, and even if you've got trash in the water, this will catch trash, but this won't. And what that is, that's a circle hook. Now if I want it to sink a little bit more, I'll put a split shot on it. But right now, I'm fishing shallow water. You know, I'm talking a foot or less. So, most of you guys will be fishing a little deeper water than that. Now, when I hook my jigs, I use Bass Assassin. Everybody has their favorite, but they all work about the same. But one thing I found out, one little trick I use is, okay, you notice the belly of the grub, okay, what I do, I don't put that down. Whether I put it on a jig or just a regular hook, I put the belly up. I found that this, with this particular bait especially, but most of them, the way the tail is formed, if you'll put it upside down, you'll get a little more flutter, a little more action out of that tail. Now, when I hook it, I don't want to hook it back into the body. I'm going to hook it through the nose, just I hooked that backwards. I'm going to hook it through the nose just like I would a minnow.
What size hook is that?
What's that?
What size hook?
This is a 1/0. I don't hardly any. I use small hooks. I don't use any very big hooks. Once in a while, I'll use a 3/0. This without hooking. Now, what's going to happen is that hook is going to ride like this. So that's the way that grub's going to come through the water. Which actually, you'd be surprised with the circle hook like this. That's virtually weedless. That's gonna ride hook point up. And then when you set, when you set the hook on a circle hook, you just want to reel it. You don't want to do any jerking, just reel. That's, I'm trying to think there's something else I was gonna say about that.
Do you ever put any
Oh.
Procure on it or anything like that?
I never used sand. I never really felt the need to, One thing too, one reason I hook it like this, and you'll see I'm going to show you how to do a shrimp, a couple different things. But one reason I hook it like this is I like to hook it in the nose in the body instead of the body, because when a fish swallows it, a lot of times they're going to come up behind it. But if they have the opportunity, fish are going to pop, they're going to swallow a bait fish head first.
Right.
So when they do that, what happens is that hook turns. When they swallow it, that hook turns right down beside the body. So what you get is that as it turns, then that hook point is facing towards you. So when you set the hook, you don't have to turn that hook around. That's why I don't use a lot of hooks that are made into the body and setting way back in the body here, because if it's stiff in there and he swallows that by the head, okay, the hook is facing his tail. So when you set the hook, a lot of times you'll pull that hook back out of there backwards without realizing it. So you want that hook to be able to swivel when it goes in there, and it's always, this hook, whether he swallows it by the tail or whether he swallows it by the head, that hook will turn, so it'll always be facing the outer edge of his mouth to grab.
So do you hook jig heads that way?
Yeah, I'm going to show you how to do it particular.
How often have you doubled up on that?
What's that?
How often have you doubled up
Quite
on
often. I'd say probably 30–40% of the time, especially a trout. If I'm in trout, then I'll double up on it. But I have caught a trout in a red one. Yeah, you get two at a time, it gets exciting, just light tackle. Another thing I like about these canine rods, now this is a Shimano 2500, which I use for throwing weightless stuff. A shrimp with no weight. I got 14-pound test braided line on this one. But I can throw this jig here, I can throw this a long way. Now this one I've got a split shot on. But I use this for throwing live shrimp when I don't want anything on there, or these small baits that I just want to toss it out there and work shallow water. And I put the split shot on because I'm working a little deeper water. I'll work to 3 or 4 foot deep with this. But with this little outfit, this is a 2500 braided line, but this is the same exact rod that I'm fishing my 4000 on. Same exact rod. The tip is flexible, and this thing is great. I can throw this thing a mile. And if I put a mirror dyne on here, man, I can put this thing halfway across the bay. What you talking about, the one lure thing? I got one word, mirror dyne. Okay. But Rick told me that because I told him, I said, well, I got with it for 2500. I need the next stage up rod for my 4000. He said, no. He said, it's the same rod. Come on, But I did, and I've used them, and it's great. But I use braid on these lighter ones when I want to cast real light stuff long distance. This stuff here, I'm not going to get as good a distance, but I can still throw a pretty good weight, far enough. Now if I put braid on this, then I can throw it a lot farther. But I like that mono for working those plugs.
How fast, John?
What's that?
How fast do you draw that in?
It's according to the time and conditions. This time of year, I'm fishing slow, what we call low and slow. And another thing we use, it's a term we use as fly fishermen, we call it brown and damp. This time of year, you got stuff coming in the river. You want to fish those holes? Put on something, use copper, brown, that kind of root beer. These are the kind of colors for this year. And they're really going to work well. I like using the white, what they call the pinfish bass assassin. I like to use that when I'm out fishing in clear water flats for trout. that seems to work better. But when I'm fishing the mouth of the river here and fishing for reds and snook, you know, a lot of times I'm throwing that gold, copper, this shrimp. Now this is a DOA shrimp. Again, they got the hook in them already. I take the hook out. All right, I leave the weight in because I like the weight. But what I'm going to do is, I'm going to hook that circle hook right in the nose with the point up. And that's the way I'm going to work that shrimp. Now, when I'm going to show you, when I go to live bait, when I'm using live shrimp, most time what I'll do is, first thing I do is take the tail off. Then with live shrimp, I'm going to come from underneath and I'm going to hook him just like this. I'm going to hook him in the tail. Okay. If I put that shrimp on a float, what's going to happen is he's still going to swim. He's going to swim away from it. But if a fish comes after him, he has no tail to skip back out. So he's going to get eaten a lot quicker. All right. He's not going to die any quicker because I pull his tail off. He's going to die a lot quicker if you hook him close to the head. All right. Plus, if you hook him to the head, it has a hard time swimming with that hook. But if I'm fishing these live shrimp without a weight on a float close to the mangroves, that's the way I'm going to hook them, because I want to throw them up. They're going to swim right into the trees. Another reason I like to take the tail off, I also do it if I'm going to fish them on a jig. This time of year, I'll start hitting these holes. I'll put a little jig head on here, use a mission jig. I'll hook this shrimp the same way with a jig head. And I'll bump the bottom. But I like taking that tail off because it puts more scent in the water. That little bit of, which is why I don't need to put, scent on a lot of my stuff. Now some of this stuff has scent built into it. But that's, and also one thing, you take that tail off, that eliminates that shrimp from spinning when you go reeling it in. Yes.
Color the jig head.
Color jig head.
Which
This time of
color do you
year, this
like
time of year, I like using black or copper, gold, that color. Yeah.
How heavy would it?
Eighth of an ounce. Quarter is the biggest I use, but it's mostly an eighth of an ounce. But I'm going to drop it in. I'm going to let these things go real slow. I want to bump the bottom. If I'm not hooking the bottom every once in a while, if I'm not feeling the oysters, if I'm not feeling the bottom, I'm not getting down there. I'm watching these trout on the dock that I'm catching, and I was throwing a little, I think call them M77, those little tiny rear lures. I catch a lot of fish on those. But what I have to do is, and I'm letting it sit, and I'm watching, and that's why I catch fish off my dock, because I'm watching what they're doing. Well, these trout are laying here, they're going to come up. They're not going to chase it very far. So you want to get it down where they don't have to come up very far, because they're going to be right on the bottom. And then when it comes across, they're going to attack it. Redfish the same way. So you don't want to have to move very far. But yeah, about an eighth ounce is what I normally throw. If I'm throwing real, something with a lot of current, then I may go to a quarter of an ounce. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get up above the hole, anchor at the top of the hole, and I'm going to cast across it, starting at the top. Because I want to fish, what I'm going to do is throw it out and let that jig bounce, and what we call quartering. So I'm going to let that bounce. That's why we're working with a fly. I'm going to bounce it across, because if you're coming across the hole, as opposed to casting it down the hole and coming straight through, you're going to come in front of a lot more fish, because they're going to be stacked more likely side by side, scattered down through there. So if you kind of sweep, start at the top of the hole, sweep it, and then just work your way down, and each cast go a little bit further down the hole and come back around, you'll be surprised. Probably, I would say probably 30–40% of your takes, maybe even more, are going to happen when you turn to come back. That's where most of ours, that's where most of it happens, because the lure or fly did something different. How many people have fish follow your lure to the boat, and then when you go to reel it in, boom, he blows out, it's because at that last minute you did something different. So when that lure changed action, it keyed something in that fish, and he went to attack it because he knew it was trying to get away from it. So what I try to do is do something different a little further out. So if you do something a little further out, then he has a chance of doing it. They'll hit it. Just remember that. Now when I hook a bait fish on a jig, on the shrimp, I'm going to put it, right in the bottom here, similar to that. So it's, right on that jig head when I'm hooking the shrimp, hook point up. Now, when I hook a bait fish, I'm going to do the same way I did earlier. I'm just going to hook him in the nose. I don't run him up on that hook shank. The same reason as a while ago, because that hook will turn. When he swallows that hook will turn. Also, instead of this jig head looking like it's part of that body, it actually appears that he might be chasing a smaller fish, which triggers something in fish. When they get up on a fish that's feeding on something else, they figure that it's an easy catch because they're not paying any attention to them. They're concentrating on the prey that they're after. So that looks like it actually would appear in the water similar to a bait fish chasing a bait fish. Which kind of, these little things, just little things like that key the difference to whether a fish may bite or might not. And hopefully some of these things will teach you where, like I said, these circle hooks, the way I hook my shrimp, the way I do my DOAs, I just feel like I get a lot more hookups by doing that than by using a normal DOA with the hook they put in.
There's probably a lot more action too.
Get a lot more action. Well, that's like on this jig, on this jig here, that thing's got a lot more action than it would if I'd ran this hook halfway down the body.
Do you dead stick at all?
Not with this stuff. Not with our officials. Not with our officials. I may almost dead stick by just laying out there and just kind of, working the hole real slow so I get down to the bottom. But yeah, not unless I have live bait.
You ever fish with a gulp?
What's that?
You ever fish with a gulp?
Yes, I do.
You dead stick that?
Hardly ever. I don't have the patience to dead stick. My brother, we grew up fishing there. My brother, I had an older brother, and he was a worm fisher at freshwater. He loved worm fishing, but he had the patience. I mean, he'd throw that sucker up there, and he would eat a sandwich, drink a cup of coffee, and then move his worm. And we'd stop in a ditch on the side of the road, he'd catch bass. I didn't catch nothing. But he had the patience to do it. He'd take the little purple cream worms and little, he'd throw it into any place around here and he'd catch bass. I wouldn't, but he'd let it sit there for 5 minutes before he moved it. I don't have the patience. I gotta move. Now, this may not make a difference, but to me, I think it does. When I'm fishing shrimp in clear water, I like to try to use a lighter colored hook to match my bait. I'm using greenbacks that are shiny. I like to use a lighter colored hook. If I'm using darker bait, fishing on the bottom for grouper, that kind of stuff, I like to use a darker hook. I think it makes a difference. When I tie my flies, if I tie a light colored fly, I use a light colored hook. If I tie a darker fly, sand colored, root beer, all that, I want to use a dark hook because I don't want that shine. I think it makes a difference.
So you don't use any of those red hooks at all? Just blood red hooks?
Sometimes, but not really. No. I use them once in a while when I'm fishing live bait. I'll put a red circle hook on, but not very often. Not very often.
Anything else on you?
I think that's pretty much covered up. Take some time here, but I don't know much. So, yeah.
John, you fished in the river, Little Manatee River a lot. What is the strategy for somebody that doesn't fish the river? How do you approach, the river's pretty big and there's a lot of turns, and how do you know where to fish, let's say for redfish?
Well, it's a perfect time of year. Okay, what you want to do is go out on negative tide and cruise the river. That's going to show you where all the holes are at. You want to find deep holes. You want to find holes that are flowing onto or off of a sandbar. Trying to think of a couple.
I found the sandbars.
What's that?
I have found the sandbars.
Yeah, yeah, but you want one, you know, if you get a depth finder, you want one that's going from 2-3 foot deep down to about 8 or 10. And the smaller pocket, the better. If you're coming out the river, do you know where the house is? Okay, if you're coming out of the river, I'm trying to, coming down the river and you come to the Goat Island turn.
Yep.
Okay, you turn back, you're going along Goat Island. Okay, and then you know, over on the right, there's that house with the turret on it that moved from Palmetto.
Yep.
Big old house was built in the 1800s, they floated up on the barge.
Yep.
Okay, if you go up there, where that enters to that house, that right there is a perfect hole. Because what happens is, okay, it's draining out of that mangrove coast edge, so you got a trough there. There's oysters on this side, you can tell by looking at the bank. There's mangroves, there's oysters there, okay? And then I'm trying to think, it'd be to the east. But anyway, on the other side of that hole, so you got the mangroves, you got that trough run here, and then on this side, you got all that shallow sandbar. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
Okay, right there, on an outgoing tide, I'll fish that deeper edge where the oysters are. On an incoming tide, I fish more over on that edge where the sandbar is. Because it's flowing bait up on that sandbar and they're laying right there. But that hole right now, you can sit there and catch redfish, snook, sheephead, you know, all that stuff. But you gotta get it on the bottom. And I don't use live bait. You know, I'll pick this from artificial, some live bait. You know, and then you go right around the corner, there's a hole there where it's got old dock pilings, the docks are falling down.
Yep.
See, that's a 10-foot hole there. So I fish that hole a lot.
I've seen you fly fishing there a lot.
Yeah, I fish that hole a lot. But you just, you know, you go along, that's what, you know, be pulling the flats. I can tell you on those flats, I can take you, I know where every depression is. You know, I know where it goes from a foot down to 2 foot. Because that's going to make a difference. You know, you get in the wintertime, those redfish are going to get in these darker. First, you fish for redfish in the wintertime, you want to look for dark bottom. Okay? Because they'll lay on that dark bottom in a whole heap. So when you see, even if water's off of it, when as soon as water comes in where they can get in it, they're going to get in on that dark bottom because that's going to hold heat. And they're going to go 2 or 3 degrees, it's going to make a difference. I don't know if you saw, I did a seminar here on the winter tides before.
Yep. Yeah, that's online too.
Yeah. Yeah. But this is the perfect time of year to learn the river. You know, and the river is just like any place else. The best way to learn is to run it. Because then you remember where that sandbar is at there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
The only thing good about here, see, I fished every Lake City, that Chocoloski. I love that area down here. But the only thing difference is here you can usually see down in the water. Down there you can't. You know, you'll run on an oyster bar and never even see it. So, you know, but that's, you know, the best way to do it is go poke around. Poke around, poke around. You know, go to an area that you've never gone to. You know, don't fish the same area all the time. You know, there's I tell you, a real good place for bait is above 41, the first dock on the right. And get up above that and fish that. That holds a lot of sheephead. You know, we're fixing to you get a lot of mangrove snapper there, catch snook, redfish. That dock is really good. Yeah, that dock is really good.
You know what, they're behind the trailer park?
What's that?
They're behind the trailer park.
Yeah, there's a trailer park up that way, just north.
Yeah, it's on down though. It's on down.
Just north of 41.
This is the first dock as you come under 41 going
Yep.
up the river.
Yep.
So you come around that little island there and all that shallow water, and it's that first dock because that's where all that flat drains. That's where it drops down. That's why my dock is so good at the house. because my neighbor on the right, there's a hump there. So it's real shallow between me and him. In front of my dock, there's a trough that starts deepening right there. So that's where it starts getting deep, and it gets deeper run along that edge. And so that's what you want to find. You want to find those transitions where it goes from shallow to deep. Because they're going to go in that deep water when it's cold. When that sun gets out, they're going to get up in that shallow water.
Devil's Elbow was always good, but now there's so much boat traffic. It's hard to
Yeah,
anchor out
you know, and it's like I was telling somebody who was talking about, about kayak. You know, you want to be careful around Good Island, around that bridge. I mean, I have hollering matches with guys there all the time because they come flying through there.
Yeah.
And I just, you know, there's a couple of guys and I've had words.
That's why
Because
I
you
have a
can't-
high-powered flare gun.
Yeah, because you can't. I mean, it's like, you know, I tell them they're idiots because they can't see around that corner.
Yeah.
You know, slow down. Because there's too many kayakers and, you know, there's people out there trying to fish and they got a jump boat and a trolling motor. You know, you run over the top of them, that's crazy. It's not worth it. You know, if you can't see, slow down. Same thing up the river, you know.
And Robert's Fish House used to be good, but now the catfish are taking it over. That's all you catch there anymore, catfish.
Yeah.
Go down the river.
Yeah. Yeah, another thing too, when you're fishing, if you start catching a lot of pinfish, you know, increase your hook size. That'll eliminate a lot of it. I like smaller hooks. I like to use a small hook because I can get away with it. Because I just think you get better penetration. It's a thinner hook, better point. You know, you get better penetration. You know, I fish for, you know, 180 to 100 pound tarpon. Biggest hook I use is a 3-aught. And it's usually a 1-aught is what I'm using.
Easiest way to sit there and really learn a river is how JT and I learned. Hired a good guide. John's a good one that knows the river real well. Rick Lyle's another one that knows the river real well. He showed me a bunch of spots, and that's one of the easiest ways. Spend the $400, $500 for the day and just go out there and soak up every bit of spot that he'll show you. Because it just, not even just the river, just where the river runs into, like over here at, what's it, Mary's Kitchen?
Mary's Lake.
Mary's Lake.
Yeah.
That area, and
Yeah.
just all that,
Yeah.
just hire a
Well,
good
plus
guide.
too, see, you hire a guide, I got a permit, I can run our background.
Yep.
But,
JT, what happens when you run on that
is-
side?
They'll throw blue lights on you real quick.
Yeah, but, you know, all that back through there, what we call Cylinder's Cut, that's the back way. Going in where you gotta go across that shallow bar.
That's a dangerous spot if you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, but I grew up going through there,
Yeah.
so, I remember when Mike Morgan hit that sucker doing about 70 miles an hour, but he's got 150 horse on his 6 boat, that's ridiculous. But it threw him over. But you learn your water, you know your water. We have a lot of, I'd say, discussions with the government because they don't want us running back there as guides. But most guides I know don't tear up the bottom. If I'm gonna run, if I'm on a plane, I'm not gonna touch the bottom, and I know where to go. But what you get is these guys that get in there with big boats. They got they're trying to go to a foot of water, and they got a 1.5 foot draft. It don't work, guys. And they'll run in there with their big bay boats, and then when they hit bottom, then they tilt their motor back, and they put in gear and start trudging through there and chewing up the mud while they're doing it. They've been better off they've been on a plane. But I'm sorry about that. Get off the soapbox here. That's a...
Just different direction for a second. When you're talking about the size hooks, do you kind of follow that as well? Let's say with redfish with a fly rod, do you go to a smaller hook?
Yeah, I use most of my flies for reds are tied on a number 4, number 2.
Wow.
Biggest one would be probably a number 1. You have to be careful too because different makes of hooks are different sizes actually. And I might use a little bit of a wider gap hook for a certain fly. But yeah, I use mostly 2 to 4s.
Almost like a bonefish fly.
Yeah, exactly. Do you fly fish?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been fly fishing twice. My first and my last.
I'm sorry.
fly to the back of the head or it'll fly to the daggone booby. See how it feels.
It's the ear that gets you.
Ears, yeah, ears.
Yeah.
Try it to the back of the noggin.
The ears seem to stick out. They just,
Well, I would say my son caught his first bass when he was 3 years old. I've been wearing a wide brim hat ever since. It saved my ears quite a few times. But you know, fly fishing is not as hard as it looks. It's really easy once you get the mechanics of it. And you talk about fun. God, it's fun. But I do a lot of sight fishing. You know, I do a lot of sight fishing. I pole a lot, man. I would say probably 70% of the time I'm on the water, I'm on my poling platform. And I'll go out, whether I have a charter or not, I need to know where the fish are at. So I'll go out and pole these flats, pole back where I think the fish are, just to see where they're at, and check them out and see what they're doing. And then a lot of times I'll go where I haven't been fishing just to see what's going on there. You know, as a guide, we've got to know what these fish are doing whenever you come to get on our boat. And what he was saying about hiring a guide, I went to Tennessee when I first started trout fishing. I did a lot of saltwater. And the first thing I did was hire a guide. You know, he taught me the techniques, how to read the water, the techniques to use while I was up there. But here I have a lot of guys some guys tell me when they come, you know, hey, we want to learn this area. And if they do that up front, I'll say, well, okay, where would you like to, where do you go? What kind of boat do you have? Because there's no sense in me taking you back there where I have to pole in the Hills Bay, and you can't get it. So I need to know what kind of boat you've got, okay? What kind of fishing you want to do. And I have no problem with telling you, because I'm not going to show you my secret hole. I'm just going to show you my secret hole. And how to fish it. And that's the key. Because you can find your own hole. You know, if you fish enough, you can find your own holes, your own area. But the key is knowing where to fish, what tide, that kind of stuff. It's what time of year, because they change, you know, the temperatures. I would say that probably one of the most key thing in fish movement is temperature in this area.
Yeah, like this summer, I quit fishing because I really like to fish. I like to catch my fish, then clean them, and then cook them. I don't like to catch them already cooked.
Yeah. Yeah, now see in the summertime, you know, we change things too, because now in the summertime, when it starts getting warm, I get on the water. I'm on the water where I want to fish when the sun comes up.
Okay.
All right. Then I come in 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. All right.
Yeah.
Then I'll go back out. See, I don't do it like a lot of these guys. I live on the water. So I'll go back out about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon and fish till dark, which I love because most of the time we've had a shower, it's ran everybody else off the water, nobody else going to go out that time of day. You'd be surprised. I mean, there's a lot of open water in the afternoon in the summertime. And, so, you know, so I go back out and fish till dark. You know, I've had charters where I fished a guy, well, we fished the dock lights in the morning and fished until noon. I took him in, took a nap, relaxed. Another guy came at 5 o'clock. I pushed him till 1 o'clock in the morning because it was really good. You know, and in the summertime, wintertime is best, but in the summertime we still catch fish around these docks at night.
Do tides play a role in river fishing?
Yeah, yeah. You want a moving tide. You get a moving tide, you're going to have the best bite. And, you know, they hit on both, but I find in the river itself I get a better bite on redfish on incoming tide, and snook eat better on outgoing tide. Why, I don't know, but it seems to me that it seems to work.
And in a kayak, you'll catch that magic tide where you want to paddle upstream, but if the tide switches on you, you may be paddling upstream back to where you started. That's happened to me. I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. That's no fun.
Hence why I don't hire.
There you go. Yeah, I like to turn that key when I get that.
They make kayaks with electric trolling motors now.
Man, it was about a
Yeah, but you
40-inch
know, now
snook.
you have to sit there and you gotta register that as a vehicle. You
Oh, yeah.
gotta have the sticker on, the whole 9 yards. DMV's gonna get their money, I promise you that.
Still got a trolling motor on it.
I don't fish with a trolling motor. Very seldom. Once in a while, if I'm gonna fish the river, and I got a strong current, I wanna fish the seawalls, that kind of stuff, then I might use a trolling motor. Otherwise than that, I don't want the flats, I never use a trolling motor. I mean, pulling, or put it, and one of the best things, we were talking about, Charles and I were talking about this earlier, one of the best things that I use on the flats, when I want to work a flat, is a C anchor. I drop it off the back of my skiff, and for me, what happens is, it puts you in the wind. Well, it puts my fly caster with the wind to his back, which is optimal. But with you, anybody, you get there and you put that sea anchor out, and it holds your boat back, and you just work that whole flat. And then when you get through, you pull it in, you circle back around. Don't come straight back up. Circle back around and come back and move over one way or the other, and do it again. And you can fish by yourself doing that. But you can do that with a kayak.
Yeah, I just did that last week, or
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, it was
I mean,
blowing
that's
15.
To me, that is the best way to fish a
Oh,
fly.
that was great.
Because you're moving. Because I don't, and you'll hit trout, or you'll catch trout, a couple of them. But the key is move on through them. You come back around, and you'll hit them again when you come back through. And the main thing you'll learn by doing that is you'll learn every single depression, every prop scar that's on that flat. Because watch, this time of year especially, watch these prop scars, because them redfish will be laying in that prop scar with his nose down. And that's what, of course, I get it from sight fishing. I'm easing up there looking at it. Them suckers, they're gonna look for anything different they can lay down in that current. And, yes.
You say that you even go out when you don't have a charter and you're looking for the fish to find out where they are. What are their variations? How far are they moving? I understand if there's a front that comes through, they could move 18 miles. They could go all the way upriver, they could go all the way out bay.
Yeah, probably not.
But if it's a calm week, and you don't have very much weather changing, you don't have pressure changing or anything else, what's the general
They're
range?
not gonna move much except with the tide. In that situation, and what I'm doing is I'm trying to find out, a lot of times I may be having a client coming and I want to kind of see if I can find a different area where I'm gonna find some fish.
Right.
But our fish here are gonna move in the river, from the river to the outside edge of the flats. Snook will move down to Port Manatee,
Right.
but that's about as far as they're going. Other than the tarpon. Now tarpon, I get tarpon, I call 120-pound tarpon a mile above I-75. Nobody fishes.
Above.
Above.
Oh,
Nobody fishes up there. You get above I-75, it's like a maze. So a bunch of dead-end bayous. So I get that fishery all to myself. In that same bayou, I've caught bluegill, tarpon, 120-pound tarpon, snook, largemouth bass, mullet or fly, and redfish. Yep.
Yeah.
I got a question. Say you're fishing a point or whatever, and the tide's coming in or out. Where would you anchor and how would you fish it? What I'm saying is, do you anchor down where the tide's coming in? You're anchor down tide and then fish and bring it back through the tide, or you going so you want to pull it against the tide?
I want to pull it like I was talking about. I'm not going to get straight above that hole. This is the lane here, okay? I want to get over to the side of that hole. And I'm going to cast across it, starting at the top, and working that lure through the hole and out the other side. Because not only are they going to be laying here, they're going to be laying on these edges where it comes in from both sides. All right? And I don't want to, if I'm up above with the current coming from my back, I can control my lure or bait, so I can control it a lot more than if I'm trying to throw it up and it's coming at me.
Okay.
Because I can control it and I can let it drop and bring it up. I can swing it over, but I'll get to the side of it and start working. And then if it's a big enough hole, what I'll do is I'll drop down 20 foot and work the bottom edge of it where it comes out the other end.
I got you.
But I'll normally start from the top and I'm just working down tide the whole time. And look for any eddies. If you got eddies like on both sides of the with a broken bridge, but then you got little eddies. You got like Black's Point. Anybody know where Black's Point is? Okay, so you got Black's Point. Okay, if that current's coming out, I'm gonna fish this upside first. Because bait fish, a lot of times, you'll catch snook that'll be feeding on bait fish that get pushed up there. All right? And then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna work that hole, there's about a 6-foot hole there at the end of that point. All right? And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull up and re-anchor on the downside of that to where I'm still up current. But you got those trees right there on the end, and then it goes, you know, cuts back in and it's shallow there. Okay, so I can fish that eddy right there. But if you'll take your time and just anchor up, and you know, that's another reason I don't use trolling, because I'm gonna anchor up. If I want to work an area, I'm gonna anchor up and I'm gonna work what I can reach, and then I'm gonna pull up my anchor. I call it a poor man's power pole, anchor on a short rope. But I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna pull it up, I'm gonna move up 20 or 30 foot, usually 20, and then I'm gonna work that area. And then I'm gonna pull up and I'm gonna move another 20 foot and work that area. And one thing with doing that too is you'll learn, okay, got an outgoing tide, when I go to this hole, this is where I need to concentrate on. Because you'll learn where those fish are at those different stages in different times of year. Once you do it year round, you'll learn different times of year where these fish are gonna be, what's gonna be in that hole, what's not. Like these holes, we haven't seen many of them yet, but you're gonna start seeing mangrove snapper. I'm seeing sheephead move in already, but you're gonna start seeing mangrove snapper move in these holes.
When you're talking about eddies, explain what an eddy is.
An eddy is where something's blocking that current, and the current's coming around, so it's doing this number. So it's a slack, actually a slack area in there, because a lot of these fish are gonna lay just out of the current. The ones that are on the bottom are laying down on something, they got their nose down behind something where they're not fighting that current. So the ones on up, where you got that eddy, and they come around here and they're gonna lay there waiting on bait to come through.
So like,
So you want to throw up into that current and let it drift into that dead water.
so you're talking about the broken bridge.
That's on both sides.
You're right, whenever if the tide's coming in, you're gonna be on the west side or the east side
I'm
of it.
going to concentrate on
Right,
that, yeah.
but whatever the column side is,
That's
that the water's flowing to is the side that you're gonna bounce.
right, right. I will fish on the upside or the downside of the bridge according to, you know, according to which way the tide's going.
Right.
Incoming tide, I want to be on the upside. Outgoing tide, I want to be on the downside. That would be your most, I mean, you're going to catch fish either side at any time, but that's where you're going to catch them. They're going to concentrate on.
Now, are there any other scenarios that you're specifically looking for? Like if you don't have an area where you see an eddy that sticks out, is there anything else specific that you could look for that's gonna point you in the direction and say, hey, I need to throw something here?
Anything different.
Anything different?
Anything different.
Tree sticking out of the water.
That tree
rock
sticking out of the water, you know, a sand hole, a pot, you know, just something that's gonna be different there is gonna keep those fish. And that's, you know, when we're working these flats, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something different. I'm looking for a prop star. I'm looking for, you know, something, because this flat is all, you know, out here. And where you may have, where it drops down 6-8 inches, you know, that's gonna make a difference. Yes, sir.
Back to the rigging, like on that model, I've heard that before about even if you don't, you know, you want to use braided line if you're throwing top water to put like a mono leader on it.
I use a mono or fluorocarbon leader on all my stuff.
What kind of test?
Even the other, you know, even the light. I use anywhere from 20 to 40. If I'm fishing the river,